So if you ask something that's negatively leading, it's just going to go and obey you. So if you say, what if I don't get better by next week, or what if I don't raise the money by Friday, your brain's going to say, okay, let's come up with all the ways that you can't raise it by Friday.
Right, and my favorite is the question, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
If you ask yourself what's wrong with me, your brain will always come up with a list of plausible things that are wrong with you, even if objectively there isn't anything wrong with you.
Exactly. Well, the beauty of this is that you can take control of your brain and ask different questions. So they can be the questions like, well, what are some ways to raise the money by Friday to pay the bills that I need to pay? And it could be even a better constructed question, what is an easy, effortless, and healthful way to lose the unnecessary pounds I'm carrying by August 22nd? I mean, you can ask these well-constructed questions that will cause your brain just to be an obedient researcher. It'll go within you, first of all, looking for any answers, but then it also kind of alerts your mental radar so that when you are browsing online or you're getting some snail mail or, as you pointed out, you're walking through the bookstore, suddenly these thousands of books are blurred, but one book seems to almost leap off the page or off the shelf. And it's the book that's geared towards the answer to the question that you had given to your brain. So I treat the brain like this, like a missile operating pad, and you tell it what you're looking for in terms of an answer, and it will go and find it. So you want to be more positively directed than negatively directed. To give the example that you gave earlier, rather than asking what's wrong with me, what's right with me? List all my positive qualities and let it go to work for you there. It will just as beautifully come up with answers for that question as it will for the other question.
Sure, and another kind of pair of polar opposites of questions is, why can't I, and then you fill in the blank, as opposed to, how can I? And
I love that.
And my whole life changed when I stopped saying, why can't I, whatever it was, and started saying, how can I? And at first, when I started using questions in this way, sometimes some questions, it would be a month or so of me asking it before the answer would appear. But as you get better at this and have more practice, I find that most of the time the answer comes to me within a second or two.
Wow.
Occasionally that's not the case, but almost always it comes to me within a second or two. And I you're saying wow, but I'll bet that you do the same thing.
Well, I'm reflecting on my wow there, and I am impressed that it comes within a second or two, but I also think it depends on the question and what you're looking for. And then as I reflect on it fairly quickly here, spontaneously, yes, the answers do tend to come very quickly. Whether they come in a second or two would depend on the subject and what I'm trying to get an answer to. But I have found, well, let me give you an example. When I went through that whole asthma event and, came back to Texas and went through this whole semi-depressed period for a week or so thinking, okay, I got to do something about my health, but what? And then, of course, the emergency room bill arrives, which buckles my knees, and I'm thinking, okay, I don't want any more of this. Now, the question becomes, how can I quickly, easily, safely lose weight, achieve my ideal body, do it as quickly and as safely as possible in a way that's going to be permanent? And I don't know if that's the exact question I asked, but you get the idea that I was asking a positively directed question. That very week, and it might have been the next day, certainly within 3 days, I got an email from a company I had never heard of before. It was the Mental Toughness Institute for Weight Control. And it comes in, and I'm going, what in the world is this? And, it's one of those things where you feel in your gut that this is your answer. It's one of those things where you put out the question, here comes the answer, and it's resonating, so you know that unless you deny this consciously and just dismiss it, you know it's the right thing. I explored it, and I said, this is coming at the right time. I'm the right guy. I had asked the question. This looks like the answer. I signed up, and I swear to God, Bill, that was a transformative experience. I still love those people. I'm still in contact with them, and that was the awakening process for me, and their whole system is all about what we've been talking about here, making what's previously been unconscious, all the creation that's going on in your life that's been unconscious previously. In my case, it was unconscious to make me overweight. It was very easy to do it because I was just operating unconsciously. Had to take all of that, make that process conscious, and then go with a new direction, which has made a whole new me. There's how this works right there.
In a way, this is why Holosync works, because I mean, I can describe the benefits of it in a million ways, but really what it does is it makes you more aware. And as Ken Wilber says, awareness in and of itself is transformative. It's really the key to all the rest of the stuff. You know, you've mentioned the Attractor Factor, one of your books, a number of times, and I read that book. You was named was that the spiritual marketing book before?
The early slender version of it was called Spiritual Marketing.
Yeah, and I read that. I believe I've read every one of your books, unless you haven't sent them to me, because you sent me a big box of them at one point.
That's right.
And I don't know if you're in this situation, but I have people sending me books and other things.
Yeah.
Every day
Yeah.
I get stuff from people, and I just, I wouldn't have any time to do anything else if I didn't read them. And very often, notable people send me books too. And often I don't have time to read them. But I picked up, I think that was the one I picked up really first, was the Attractor Factor. And I read a page and a half, and I could not put it down.
Wow.
And once I'd read that book, I read every other book you'd sent me, and everyone was delightful, and everyone was a little different, a different perspective on things. I mean, you're a very multifaceted Renaissance kind of guy, is kind of the way I see you.
Oh, thank you.
Anyway, I just give people a little more information about that particular book, because I think that's an important book, and I think it would really resonate with a lot of people who are listening.
Well, there's a couple of things that I want people listening to understand about this book, because this is a teaching tale here. I did not want to release the book that was originally called Spiritual Marketing, and then when it was revised and published by a major publisher, it's now called The Attractor Factor. I never wanted to originally release it because it was a personal book. It had a lot of my personal struggle stories in it, from homeless to, whatever I am today. And I only wrote it as a little booklet for my sister, because she was struggling. She had been on welfare. She had been in poverty. She was trying to raise 3 kids. And by then, I knew these secrets to prosperity. I knew these secrets to creating your own reality, the art of manifestation, if you will, and I wrote that little booklet for her. But I didn't want to release it to the world, because I thought, I've been published by the American Marketing Association, the American Management Association. I've got an audio series with Nightingale Conant. These are all very conservative, large companies. What will they think of me? What will the world think of me if I stand up and say, folks, one of the things I do in my life to achieve these results is I work from the inside out. And I thought, they're going to think I'm flaky. So I didn't release the book for the longest time, and then as I slowly did, and I would give it to my sister, I'd give it to a few friends, and I'd see them get these results. My sister got off welfare, she got a job, she bought a car. She still struggles some with money, but she's not fully practicing the processes either. So anyway, long story short, I found that very often the gold in a person's life is in that area where they're afraid. I was afraid to release the Attractor Factor because I thought, what will people think of me? Yet when I did release it, it has become a bestseller 3 times. It has gone through 4 printings. Even Spiritual Marketing has been a bestseller and gone through several printings. It's published by a major publisher who has now signed, I think, 3 other book deals with me because they're so delighted with the success of the Attractor Factor. The Attractor Factor is my most beloved book. I have, 30-some books between ebooks and published books, and I've been published in any way, shape, or form you can think of, from self-published, print-on-demand, traditional publishing, the whole route. The Attractor Factor is still the one that shines the brightest, yet it was the one I was most reluctant to share. So I'm trying to express to people that if you are looking to bring in riches in your life, besides doing all of the things we've been talking about on this call, also look in that area of your life where you really have a thrill, you really have a passion, you really have a love, but you've not shared it with the rest of the world, not in a public way. It could be a sign of the gold that's waiting for you. And then the other part of this is, the Attractor Factor reveals a 5-step formula for creating wealth or anything else from the inside out. And again, it's all about the stuff we've been touching on throughout this call, about taking complete responsibility, about directing our mind to go in the right direction, or directing our brain to bring us the answers we want, about realizing that we're already master creators. We've just been doing it unconsciously, so we're getting things that we consciously say we don't quite prefer, and we want to become aware of that process and take control of it. So I love the Attractor Factor. I'm very proud of it. In fact, I'll tell listeners that if they want to get a special deal,